Marcus Chen stared at his reflection in the window of the starship and tried not to panic. Outside, stars streaked past in brilliant lines of light. Inside, his stomach churned with nervousness. He was 28 years old, barely 3 years into his diplomatic career, and somehow he had been assigned to the most important first contact mission in human history. The Calithrax Empire had finally agreed to meet with humans. After 2 years of careful messages and cautious exchanges, they had invited a human diplomatic team to their border station. It was a huge opportunity. The Calithrax controlled dozens of star systems and had technology humans could only dream about. They were also known for being fierce, honor-bound, and impossible to negotiate with. Marcus wiped his sweaty palms on his pants and checked his tablet again. He had read every file on Calithrax culture at least 50 times. They valued strength above all else. They despised lies and deception. Their warriors wore ceremonial armor even during peace talks. And they had one custom that made Marcus's blood run cold every time he thought about it. When a Calithrax said, "Speak your mind," or "say what you're thinking," you had to tell the complete truth. No exceptions, no polite lies. If you tried to hide your thoughts or soften your words, they considered it the worst kind of dishonor. "Mr. Chen, Commander Velcara is ready for dinner." Marcus jumped at the voice. He turned to see Lieutenant Williams, the ship's protocol officer, standing in the doorway. She looked as nervous as he felt. "Right, okay, I'm ready," Marcus said, even though he absolutely was not ready. The dining room was designed to accommodate both human and Calithrax guests. The ceiling was 12 feet high, and the furniture could adjust to different sizes. When Marcus entered, he saw her immediately. Commander Velcara stood near the far wall, speaking quietly with 2 of her officers. She was enormous, at least 7 feet tall, and covered from head to toe in ornate armor. The metal was a dark purple color, decorated with intricate engravings that probably told the story of her battles. Her helmet had a T-shaped visor that revealed nothing of her face. Marcus couldn't even tell if she was looking at him. "Ambassador Chen," Velcara's voice came through a speaker in her helmet, deep and resonant. "Please, sit." Marcus sat at the long table. The human delegation leader, Ambassador Rodriguez, sat at the head of the table with his advisors. The Calithrax sat on the opposite side. Between them was enough food for a small army, carefully prepared to meet both species' dietary needs. The dinner started awkwardly. Every conversation felt like walking through a minefield. Ambassador Rodriguez spoke about trade opportunities. Velcara responded with questions about human military capabilities. Her officers said almost nothing, just sat like statues in their armor. Marcus tried to focus on his food, but he kept glancing at Velcara. He was supposed to be the cultural liaison, the person who helped both sides understand each other. But how could he do that when he couldn't see her face? He couldn't read her body language. He had no idea if she was angry, bored, interested, or insulted. Was she sitting stiffly because she was uncomfortable? Or was that just how Calithrax sat? When she tilted her head slightly during Ambassador Rodriguez's speech about friendship between species, did that mean she was listening carefully, or preparing to reject the proposal? Marcus realized he was staring. He quickly looked down at his plate. "You," Velcara's voice cut through the polite conversation. "Human Chen." Marcus's head snapped up. Everyone at the table was looking at him. "Yes, Commander. You have been watching me closely throughout this meal. Your eyes return to me every few seconds." Velcara leaned forward slightly. "Say what you're thinking, human." The table went silent. Marcus felt his heart hammering in his chest. This was it, the moment every human diplomat feared. He could see Ambassador Rodriguez's face go pale. Lieutenant Williams looked like she might faint. Marcus's brain raced. He needed to say something diplomatic, something careful and measured. But he was exhausted. They had been traveling for 6 days, and he had barely slept. He had spent every waking moment studying Calithrak's customs, preparing for every possible scenario, except this one. The truth tumbled out of his mouth before he could stop it. "I was thinking, you should remove your armor." The words hung in the air like a bomb. One of Velkhara's officers stood up so quickly, his chair fell over. His hand went to the weapon at his belt. The other officer made a sound that the translator rendered as a sharp hiss of anger. "Marcus, what?" Ambassador Rodriguez started, but Velkhara raised one armored hand. "Explain," she said. Her voice was cold as ice. Marcus knew he had made a terrible mistake, but backing down now would be even worse. The Calithraks hated lies and cowardice. His only option was to double down on the truth. "I can't read your body language," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Your armor hides everything. I can't see your face, can't see how you move, can't tell if you're angry or pleased or bored. Human communication isn't just words. We need to see expressions, posture, gestures. Without that, I'm basically negotiating blind, and that's making this whole thing impossible." "You think I should expose myself to you?" Velkhara's officers were both standing now, looking ready to fight. "To remove my armor in front of outsiders." "I don't know what that means to your people," Marcus admitted. "But I know what it means for successful negotiation between humans. We need to see each other, really see each other. Otherwise we're just voices in the dark, and that's not how you build trust." For a long moment, no one moved. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He had just ruined everything. The first real chance at an alliance with the Calithrax Empire, and he had destroyed it by asking their commander to strip. Then Velkhara did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a strange sound, translated into something between a bark and a rumble. "You admit weakness," she said slowly. "You confess that your species is vulnerable without these visual signals. You tell me that you are negotiating blind. This is your strategy?" "It's not strategy," Marcus said quietly. "It's honesty. You asked me what I was thinking, and I told you." "Indeed you did." Velkhara stood up, and even though Marcus knew she wasn't going to hurt him, his instincts screamed at him to run. She was enormous and terrifying, and he had just insulted her in front of her crew. She reached up and touched the sides of her helmet. "Commander, no!" one of her officers shouted. "I will not tolerate disrespect to our customs," the other officer said, his hand still on his weapon. Velkhara ignored them both. With a hiss of releasing pressure, she removed her helmet and set it on the table. Marcus stared. He couldn't help it. Everyone stared. Velkhara's skin was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It seemed to shimmer in the light, moving through subtle shades of purple and blue. Her face was angular, with large eyes that had vertical pupils. She had no nose that Marcus could recognize, just small slits where a nose might be. Her mouth was wider than a human's, with a slightly different structure. But what fascinated Marcus most was her skin. As she stood there, exposed before the humans for the first time, her skin rippled with color. Waves of deeper purple flowed across her features, mixed with flashes of orange and red. She was beautiful, and she was terrified. Marcus could see it now, written in colors across her skin. "There," Velkhara said, and her voice sounded different without the helmet, more vulnerable somehow. "Now you can see me, human. Can you read this?" Marcus nodded slowly, understanding dawning on him. "Yes," he said softly. "Yes, I can." The colors on Velkhara's skin shifted again, settling into something calmer, though still swirling with uncertainty. She looked at her officers, who stared at her in shock, then back at Marcus. "Then let us try your way," she said, "and may the ancestors forgive me if this is a mistake." The next morning, Marcus woke up in his quarters, still not quite believing what had happened. He sat up in bed and replayed the previous night in his mind. Commander Velkara had removed her helmet. Actually removed it, in front of everyone. After that shocking moment, dinner had continued in an atmosphere of uncomfortable tension. Velkara's officers had remained standing, radiating disapproval. Ambassador Rodriguez had tried to resume normal conversation, but everyone kept stealing glances at Velkara's exposed face. Her skin had continued to shift colors throughout the meal, like a living mood ring. Marcus pulled on his uniform and headed to the observation deck, where he was supposed to meet Velkara for their morning briefing. It was part of his assignment as cultural liaison to spend time with her during the week-long journey to the border station. When he arrived, she was already there, standing by the window. She wore her full armor again, helmet included. Marcus felt a strange sense of disappointment. "Good morning, Commander," he said. Velkara turned to face him. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she reached up and removed her helmet again. "If we are to do this," she said, her skin rippling with shades of purple and blue, "we should do it properly." Marcus tried not to stare at the colors flowing across her skin. "Thank you. I know this must be difficult." "You have no idea." Velkara's skin flashed a deep orange for just a second. "Do you know what it means in my culture to show your bare face to someone outside your clan?" "No," Marcus admitted. "I didn't know the armor had that significance when I asked you to remove it. I just knew I couldn't read your body language." "It is—" Velkara paused, searching for words. Her skin shifted through several colors Marcus couldn't interpret. "Intimate is perhaps the closest word in your language. We do not show our faces except to family, to bondmates, to those we trust completely. The armor is not just protection. It is privacy. It is dignity." Marcus felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. "Commander, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to—" "Yet you are correct," Velkara interrupted. Her skin settled into a steady blue-purple. "I watched your face last night, after I removed the helmet. You could suddenly read me, yes? You understood things you had not understood before." "Yes," Marcus said carefully. "Your skin changes color with your emotions. It's remarkable. And that is precisely why we hide it." Velkara moved away from the window and sat down in one of the chairs. Without her helmet, she looked less intimidating and more real. "My people learned long ago that showing emotion is showing weakness. An enemy who can read your fear or anger or pain can use it against you." "So you cover it up," Marcus said, understanding dawning. "You hide behind the armor, so no one can manipulate you. We hide behind the armor so we can negotiate from a position of strength." Velkara's skin flickered orange again. "Your people do it differently?" Marcus sat down across from her. "We do the opposite, actually. In human diplomacy, showing emotion is often a tool. If we want to build trust, we show vulnerability. We let people see that we're uncertain or worried or hoping for something. It creates connection." "That sounds like madness," Velkara said, but her skin showed curiosity, a bright yellow-green that pulsed gently. "You make yourself weak on purpose?" "We make ourselves appear weak," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference. It's calculated. If I show you that I'm worried about something, and you help me with it, then we've built trust. You've proven you won't exploit my weakness. That's worth more than appearing strong all the time." Velkara was quiet for a long moment. Her skin swirled with colors Marcus was beginning to recognize as deep thought. Dark blues, mixing with purples and occasional flashes of green. "Tell me about your species' history," she said finally. "How did you survive if you show weakness so freely?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "We almost didn't survive. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. Wars, genocides, nuclear weapons. We came very close to destroying ourselves multiple times. But the ones who survived were the ones who learned to cooperate, to understand each other's emotions, to build alliances. And you built these alliances through vulnerability? Velcara's skin showed skepticism, a murky brown color. Through empathy, Marcus said, the ability to understand what someone else is feeling, to put yourself in their position. You can't have empathy without vulnerability. You have to be willing to feel what others feel. My people have a different history. Velcara's skin darkened, moving through shades of deep purple and black. We were once like you describe, open, trusting. We showed our emotions freely. Then, we encountered the Vresh. I don't know that species, Marcus said. They are gone now. We made sure of that. Velcara's skin flashed red for a brief, terrible moment. The Vresh were telepaths. They could read thoughts and emotions from a distance. When we first met them, we welcomed them as friends. We showed them our hearts, as you say, and they used everything they learned to conquer us. What happened? They ruled us for 3 generations. They knew our every fear, our every desire, our every plan, before we could act on it. The only ones who survived were those who learned to close themselves off, to hide their emotions so deeply that even telepaths could not find them. We built armor for our minds first, and then armor for our bodies. And we swore never again to show ourselves to outsiders. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. I'm sorry. I didn't know. How could you? Velcara's skin shifted to a softer purple. But now you understand why your request last night was so shocking. You asked me to undo 300 years of cultural evolution in a single moment. Yet you did it, Marcus said softly. Why? Velcara stood up and walked back to the window. Her skin rippled with complex patterns Marcus couldn't fully read. Because I wondered, she said finally. I wondered if perhaps we have been hiding for so long that we forgot how to truly connect. Your species terrifies the Calathrax High Council. Did you know that? What? Why? We're nowhere near as powerful as you are. Because you are chaos, Velcara said. You form alliances with species who should be enemies. You befriend those who should fear you. You adapt and change and grow in ways we cannot predict. The Council believes it is because humans are irrational and emotional. But I am beginning to think it is because you understand something we have forgotten. Over the next 3 days, Marcus and Velcara conducted an experiment. Each day, Velcara removed more of her armor during their meetings. First the helmet, then the gauntlets, then the chest plate. Each piece she removed revealed more of her color-changing skin. And as she became more visible to Marcus, something remarkable happened. The negotiations improved, not just with Marcus, but with the entire human delegation. When Velcara sat in meetings with her skin exposed, humans could read her reactions. They could see when she was interested, confused, or offended. They adjusted their proposals accordingly. Velcara, in turn, began to read human body language. She noticed when Ambassador Rodriguez touched his nose while speaking, which meant he was uncertain. She saw when Lieutenant Williams leaned forward, indicating engagement. She learned that humans smiled for many reasons, not all of them indicating happiness. It is like learning a new language, she told Marcus one evening. But instead of words, it is movements and expressions. That's exactly what it is, Marcus agreed. And you're getting very good at it. But not everyone was happy about the experiment. Velcara's 2 officers became more disapproving each day. And Marcus noticed that some of the human diplomats were uncomfortable too. On the 4th day, Ambassador Rodriguez called Marcus to his office. Mr. Chen, I need you to stop whatever it is you're doing with Commander Velcara. Sir, the cultural exchange is going very well. It's inappropriate, Rodriguez said firmly. She's removing her armor around you. Do you have any idea what kind of message that sends? We're trying to establish professional diplomatic relations, not whatever this is. It's not like that, Marcus protested. We're just learning to read each other's communication styles. Then why does she only remove the armor around you? Why not during the formal negotiations? Marcus paused. He hadn't thought about that. I don't know. I do, Rodriguez said. It's because she trusts you. And that's dangerous, Mr. Chen. We're about to arrive at the border station, where we'll meet with the Calithrax High Council. If they see her acting this way, they might see it as weakness, or worse, as betrayal of their customs. Or they might see it as a new approach to diplomacy, Marcus said quietly. Rodriguez shook his head. You're young, Chen. You don't understand the risks. Tomorrow when we arrive, I need you to conduct yourself properly. Traditional diplomacy. No more experiments. Marcus left the office feeling uneasy. He found Velkara on the observation deck. She stood without her helmet, her skin showing patterns of deep blue thought. We arrive tomorrow, she said without turning around. I know. My superiors will not approve of what I have been doing. Her skin flickered with orange worry. Mine either, Marcus admitted. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars. Do you regret it? Marcus asked. Velkara's skin swirled with complex emotions. No, she said finally. Whatever happens tomorrow, I do not regret learning to see. The Calithrax border station loomed ahead like a fortress in space. It was massive, built from dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon platforms bristled from every surface. As the human ship approached, Marcus felt his stomach tighten with anxiety. Remember, Ambassador Rodriguez said to the team as they prepared to disembark. Formal protocols only. No improvisation. We follow the script. Marcus nodded, but his eyes kept finding Velkara. She stood fully armored again, her helmet locked in place. She looked like a stranger. Her two officers flanked her, and all three were rigid with military precision. The docking procedure took an hour. When the airlocks finally opened, Marcus and the Huron delegation stepped into a cavernous hall. Hundreds of Calithrax warriors lined the walls, all in full ceremonial armor. At the far end of the hall, 5 figures sat on a raised platform, the High Council. Even among the tall Calithrax, he was enormous, his armor more ornate than any Marcus had seen. Humans, his voice boomed through the hall, you stand before the High Council of the Calithrax Empire. State your purpose. Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward and began his prepared speech about mutual cooperation and trade agreements. Marcus barely listened. He was watching Velkara. She stood motionless, but something about her posture seemed wrong. Tense. Uncomfortable. When Rodriguez finished, the lead counselor turned to Velkara. Commander Velkara, you have traveled with these humans for 7 days. What is your assessment? Velkara stepped forward. The humans are different than we anticipated, High Counselor Tharn. Different how? There was a pause. Marcus held his breath. They negotiate with emotion rather than strength. They show weakness as a tactic. They require visual confirmation of emotional states to function effectively. Weakness, Counselor Tharn repeated. You say they are weak. I say they use weakness as a tool, Velkara said carefully. Another counselor stood up, her armor decorated with symbols of scientific achievement. Commander, there are reports that you removed your helmet in front of these humans. Is this true? The hall erupted in murmurs. Warriors shifted uncomfortably. Marcus saw Velkara's officers step away from her slightly, distancing themselves. It is true, Counselor Vex. Explain yourself. The humans could not read our intentions through our armor. Their species evolved to communicate through facial expressions and body language. Without seeing my face, they were unable to trust me, so I removed my helmet to facilitate communication. You dishonored yourself, a third counselor said, standing. You dishonored all of us by exposing yourself to outsiders like a common... I did what was necessary for successful negotiation, Velkara interrupted. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could imagine the colors that must be swirling beneath her armor. And it worked. We accomplished more in 3 days of open communication than we would have in 3 weeks of traditional methods. More? Counselor Tharn's voice was dangerous. What is more worth if we lose our dignity? Our strength comes from our discipline, Commander, from our ability to hide our weaknesses. You have forgotten this. Marcus couldn't stay silent anymore. He stepped forward without thinking. Excuse me, honored counselors, he said. If I may speak, the human wishes to defend his corrupted ally, Counselor Vex said with contempt. I wish to explain my species' perspective, Marcus said firmly. Commander Velkara did nothing wrong. She did exactly what good diplomats do. She adapted to her audience. By making herself weak, Counselor Tharn said. No, Marcus said. By making herself understood. There's a difference. Explain. Marcus took a deep breath. This was the most important moment of his career. He thought about all his training, all the protocols, all the careful diplomatic language he was supposed to use. Then he threw it all away and spoke from the heart. My species almost destroyed itself, he said. Thousands of years of war. We killed each other by the millions. We poisoned our own planet. We built weapons that could turn our entire world into ash. We came so close to extinction that most of us don't like to think about it. The hall was completely silent now. But we survived, Marcus continued. Not because we were the strongest or the toughest or the best fighters. We survived because we learned to understand each other. We learned empathy. We learned that showing vulnerability isn't weakness. It's how you build trust. Trust, Counselor Vex scoffed. And what good is trust when your enemy exploits it? Then they weren't really your ally, were they? Marcus said. Look, I understand your history with the Vresh. Commander Velkara told me what they did to you. But hiding forever isn't strength. It's fear. The murmuring in the hall turned angry. Marcus pressed on. Humans conquered our own planet, not through hiding, but through connection. Through understanding what others feel and think. We call it empathy, and it's our greatest strategic advantage. We can predict what others will do because we can imagine being them. We can form alliances because we can make others trust us. We can adapt to any situation because we can read the room. You speak of weakness as if it were strength, Counselor Tharn said. I speak of calculated vulnerability, Marcus replied. It's game theory. If I show you something vulnerable about myself, and you don't hurt me, then I know I can trust you a little. If you show me something vulnerable, and I don't hurt you, you can trust me a little. Step by step, we build real trust, the kind that lasts. And if you show vulnerability to the wrong person, then we learn who not to trust, Marcus said simply. But we learn it early, before we've risked everything. Counselor Tharn stared at Marcus for a long moment. You would put this theory to the test? Yes. Very well. Tharn gestured to someone in the crowd. Bring up Commander Velkara and Negotiator Chen. And bring up Counselor Vex's delegation. We will have a demonstration. Within minutes, the hall had been rearranged. A large table was set up in the center. Marcus and Velkara sat on one side. Across from them sat 2 Calithrax negotiators, both in full armor, both radiating hostility. The scenario is simple, Counselor Tharn announced. 2 neighboring systems both claim mining rights to an asteroid field. Negotiate a resolution. The team that reaches an acceptable solution fastest wins. The traditional Calithrax team started immediately. They laid out demands. They cited precedents. They spoke of honor and strength and ancient rights. Their approach was all about power. Who had the better claim? Who could enforce it? Who would back down first? Marcus looked at Velkara. She sat fully armored, invisible behind her helmet. Commander, he said quietly, I know they're watching. I know this is hard. But we can't do this your way or my way. We need to do it our way. For a moment, Velkhara didn't move. Then, slowly, she reached up and removed her helmet. Her skin was a chaotic swirl of colors: purple fear, orange anxiety, blue determination, red anger. Every emotion visible for everyone to see. "Let them watch," she said. Marcus smiled. "Okay, let's show them how it's done." They turned to the opposing team. Instead of demands, Marcus started with questions. What did each system actually need from the asteroid field? What were they afraid of losing? What would success look like for both sides? The traditional team responded with standard negotiating tactics: deflection, power plays, ultimatums. But Marcus and Velkhara didn't engage with that approach. They kept asking questions. They admitted when they didn't know something. They acknowledged the other side's concerns openly. "We're worried that if one system gets exclusive rights, they'll price the other out of the market," Marcus said honestly. Velkhara's skin showed agreement, a steady blue. "And we're worried that shared rights will lead to conflict over extraction schedules." The traditional negotiators seemed confused by this approach. They kept trying to use strength and intimidation, but it was like punching air. Marcus and Velkhara simply acknowledged their points and kept problem-solving. 40 minutes in, Marcus had an idea. What if neither system gets exclusive rights? What if we create a joint mining corporation, owned equally by both, with profits split based on contribution? Velkhara's skin flashed with excitement, bright yellow. That could work. Neither side loses face. Both benefit from cooperation. The traditional team was still arguing about historical precedents. By the time they finished, Marcus and Velkhara had a complete framework: shared ownership, rotating management, profit sharing based on investment and labor, independent arbitration for disputes. The traditional team had barely moved past their opening demands. Counselor Thorn stood. "Enough. I have seen enough." Marcus waited, his heart pounding. Had they won? Had they proven the point? "What you have shown us is interesting," Thorn said slowly, "but it proves nothing except that your method can work in a controlled situation. The real test would be—" He was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the station. "High Counselor," a warrior rushed into the hall. "We have a situation. Unidentified ships entering the sector. They're not responding to hails." "How many?" 50, maybe more. They're moving in formation toward both Calathrax and human space." Thorn's posture stiffened. "Battle stations. Prepare for—" "Wait," Marcus said, stepping forward. "We don't know they're hostile. Let us try to communicate first." "Your species is naive about the dangers of space," Counselor Vex said. "They move in attack formation. We should strike first." "Or we could try talking to them," Marcus insisted. "Commander Velkhara, please, give us a chance." Velkhara looked at Marcus. Her skin swirled with uncertainty. Then she turned to Counselor Thorn. "I agree with the human," she said. "Let us attempt communication before violence." "You have been with them too long, Commander," Thorn said coldly. "You have forgotten what strength looks like." "No, High Counselor," Velkhara said, and her skin flashed with brave red. "I have learned what strength truly is, and it is not always what we thought." Before Thorn could respond, another alarm sounded. Marcus saw movement from the corner of his eye. One of the guards near the door had drawn a weapon. He was pointing it at Velkhara. "Traitor!" the guard shouted. "You have dishonored us all." Everything happened very fast. The guard fired. Marcus didn't think. He just moved, throwing himself in front of Velkhara. The energy blast hit him in the chest. Marcus felt a moment of incredible pain, and then he felt nothing at all. Marcus woke up in pain. His chest felt like it was on fire. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. A gentle hand pushed him back down. "Easy," a familiar voice said. "You are not fully healed yet." Marcus blinked until his vision cleared. He was in a medical bay. Velkara sat beside his bed. She wore no armor at all, just simple clothing. Her skin showed a pattern of deep purple relief, mixed with orange worry. What happened?" Marcus managed to croak out. "You jumped in front of an energy weapon to save my life," Velkara said, "which was very brave and very stupid." "Did it work?" "Yes, you took the blast meant for me." The guard was immediately arrested. "You have been unconscious for 2 days." Marcus processed this slowly. 2 days? What happened with the unknown ships? Velkara's skin shifted to a complex pattern of emotions. "Much has happened, but first, you need to know that you almost died. The blast damaged your heart and lungs. Our medical technology could not help you. We do not have the right knowledge of human biology. Your human doctors could not help you. They did not have the right equipment." "But I'm alive," Marcus said. "Because Calathrax's doctors and human doctors worked together. They combined our technology with your medical knowledge. They saved you." Velkara's skin showed something Marcus hadn't seen before, a soft, glowing pink. Just like the Joint Mining Corporation, neither could succeed alone. Together, they did the impossible. Marcus smiled, even though it hurt. "I guess that proves our point." "It proved something," Velkara agreed, "but it created other problems." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the door to the medical bay opened. A Calathrax warrior in formal armor entered. "Commander Velkara, you are summoned before the High Council immediately." Velkara's skin flashed with red defiance. "I am attending to our injured guest." "That's not a request, Commander. You will come now." Velkara stood slowly. She looked down at Marcus. "I will return," she said. "I promise." "Velkara, wait," Marcus said. "What's this about?" But she was already leaving, her skin showing colors Marcus couldn't quite read. It was Ambassador Rodriguez who told Marcus what was happening. He arrived an hour later, looking tired and worried. "How are you feeling?" Rodriguez asked. "Like I got shot with an alien weapon," Marcus said. "What's going on with Velkara?" Rodriguez sat down heavily in the chair Velkara had used. "She's on trial." "What? For what?" "For breaking cultural protocols, for removing her armor in front of outsiders, for, quote, abandoning Calathrax principles in favor of human weakness. The hardliners on the council are calling for her to be stripped of her command and exiled." Marcus tried to sit up again, and again his chest screamed in protest. "That's insane. She was just trying to help negotiations." "I know," Rodriguez said, "and the moderate councilors know it too. But the hardliners are powerful, and they're using her as an example. They see the cooperation between our species as a threat to Calathrax culture." "I need to testify," Marcus said. "I need to tell them what really happened." "You can barely breathe, Chen. You're in no condition to." "I don't care. She saved our mission. Hell, she might have saved both our species. I'm not letting her take the fall for doing the right thing." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, I'll make the arrangements. But Chen, be careful what you say. This isn't just about Velkara anymore. It's about whether our two species can actually work together." 3 hours later, Marcus was in a wheelchair being pushed into the council chambers. His chest was wrapped in bandages, and he had a portable medical device attached to him that monitored his vital signs. Every breath was painful, but he refused to stay in bed. The council chamber was enormous. The 5 councilors sat on their raised platform, looking down at Velkara, who stood in the center of the room. She wore full armor again, locked away behind metal and ceremony. When Marcus entered, the entire room turned to look at him. "The human wishes to speak?" Councilor Tharn said. "He can barely stand." "He can speak," Rodriguez said firmly, "and the council should hear what he has to say." Tharn nodded slowly. "Very well. Human Chen, you have the floor." Marcus took a deep breath which hurt, and began. Honored counselors, I want to tell you about my species' history, not the glorious parts, the dark parts. He told them about the wars, about the Holocaust, the atomic bombs, the genocides, the environmental destruction. He told them about humanity's capacity for cruelty, about how humans had enslaved each other, murdered each other, and nearly destroyed their own planet. We did all of this, Marcus said, his voice getting stronger even as his chest ached, because we failed at empathy. We created groups of us and them. We stopped seeing each other as people. We built armor around our hearts just like you built armor around your bodies. Counselor Vex leaned forward. And you think removing that armor made you strong? I think it made us human, Marcus said. We learned that empathy isn't weakness. It's the hardest thing in the world. It's harder than wearing armor. It's harder than hiding your feelings. It's the weight of truly seeing someone else, of feeling what they feel, of understanding that they matter just as much as you do. You speak of burdens, Counselor Tharn said. We removed such burdens when we learned to shield ourselves. Did you? Marcus looked directly at Velkara's armored form. Or did you just trade one burden for another? Commander Velkara, what's heavier? Feeling other people's emotions, or hiding your own every minute of every day? For a long moment, Velkara didn't respond. Then, slowly, she reached up and removed her helmet. No, Counselor Vex stood. This trial is specifically about your violation of— Let her speak, another counselor said. It was an older Calathrax Marcus hadn't heard from before. I would hear what she has to say. Velkara's skin swirled with a dozen emotions at once. You should hear what I have learned. She walked to the center of the chamber, standing directly beneath the council's platform. Her skin showed no fear now, only determination. For 300 years, we have hidden, Velkara said. We built our armor after the Vresh enslaved us, and we swore never to be vulnerable again. We became powerful. We conquered systems. We built an empire. But did we become strong? Of course we did, Counselor Vex said. Our strength is legendary. Our power is legendary, Velkara corrected. But strength is different. Strength is bearing weight, and we have been hiding from weight, not bearing it. She began to remove her armor. First the gauntlets, then the chestplate, then the leg guards. Piece by piece, she shed the metal that had protected her. Commander, this is inappropriate, Counselor Vex protested. This is necessary. She stood before the council in simple clothing, her skin visible for everyone to see. Look at me. See me. I am afraid right now. Terrified, actually. My skin shows orange and red because I fear your judgment. But I am also determined. You see the blue and purple. I am hopeful. There is yellow. I am sad about what we have lost. There is deep purple. All of this is visible. All of this is real. And all of it makes you weak, Counselor Vex said. Does it? Velkara turned to face the counselor directly. When the human jumped in front of that weapon to save my life, was that weakness? When our doctors and human doctors worked together to save him, was that weakness? When we negotiated a solution in 40 minutes that the traditional team could not find in hours, was that weakness? High Counselor Resh stood. He was ancient, his armor worn with age. Commander Velkara makes a point worth considering. Perhaps we have been confusing strength with isolation, Counselor Vex said. We would be arguing philosophy while our enemies prepare for war. Those unknown ships are still in our sector. We should be planning our defense, not debating whether to remove our armor. About those ships, Marcus said. He looked at Rodriguez, who nodded. While I was recovering, Ambassador Rodriguez and his team made contact with them. What? Tharn stood. Without council approval? With Commander Velkara's junior officer's help, Rodriguez said smoothly. We thought it was worth trying communication before assuming hostility. And? Tharn demanded. "They're refugees," Marcus said, "called the Sindresh. Their system was destroyed by a cosmic event. They're looking for new homes. They approached our space in formation, not for attack, but for protection. They're scared." The council chamber erupted in conversation. "This changes things," High Counselor Resh said, thoughtfully. "If they are refugees and not invaders, we could help them," Velkara said. "Both Calathrax and humans. We have systems that could accommodate them. We could work together." "Or we could see this as a test," Marcus added. "A chance to show both our species what we can accomplish through cooperation." Counselor Tharn looked at Marcus, then at Velkara, then at the other counselors. "This council requires time to deliberate on all matters. Commander Velkara, you will remain confined to quarters pending our decision." "High Counselor," Velkara said, "whatever you decide about me, please consider the humans' proposal. This is bigger than my actions. This is about our future." "Noted," Tharn said. "This session is concluded." As the guards escorted Velkara away, her skin flashed a message to Marcus, blue hope mixed with orange worry. Marcus tried to smile, even though his chest hurt. Later that night, Marcus was back in the medical bay when Rodriguez visited again. "The council is deadlocked," Rodriguez said. 3 want to exile Velkara, 2 want to commute her sentence. It could go either way. "What happens if they exile her?" "Then she loses everything. Her command, her position, her place in Calathrax society." Rodriguez paused. "But there's another option." High Counselor Resh suggested it. "A compromise." "What kind of compromise?" "An experimental program, a joint diplomatic academy, human and Calathrax diplomats training together, learning both approaches. If it works, Velkara is reinstated, and this becomes the new standard. If it fails, she takes the blame," Marcus finished. "Exactly." Marcus lay back on his bed, thinking. Who would run this academy? Rodriguez smiled slightly. "I think you know the answer to that." Marcus did know, and despite everything, the pain in his chest, the uncertainty of the future, the enormous responsibility, he couldn't help but smile. "Then we'd better make sure it doesn't fail," he said. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of a window, looking out at the new diplomatic exchange station. It hung in neutral space between human and Calathrax territory, a joint construction project that had taken thousands of workers from both species to complete. The station was a symbol of what they were trying to build. Different architectures merged together, creating something neither species could have made alone. "You are nervous," Velkara said, walking up beside him. She wore a modified version of Calathrax armor, lighter, with sections of exposed skin visible at the joints and neck. It was a compromise she had designed herself, protecting vital areas while allowing her emotions to show. "Nervous? Me?" Marcus smiled. "We're about to welcome the first class of students to an experimental program that half of both our governments think is a terrible idea. Why would I be nervous?" Velkara's exposed skin showed amusement, a light green with flashes of yellow. "Because, if we fail, I lose my position, and you lose your career." "Well, when you put it that way," Marcus laughed, then grew serious. "Do you think they're ready? The students, I mean?" "No," Velkara said honestly. "But I do not think anyone could be ready for what we are asking them to do. We are asking them to unlearn everything their cultures have taught them about strength and weakness." The first students arrived an hour later. There were 20 of them total, 10 humans and 10 Calathrax. The humans were all young diplomats, eager and idealistic. The Calathrax were warriors and negotiators, chosen by their clans, most of them wearing full armor and radiating suspicion. Marcus and Velkara stood before them in the main lecture hall. "Welcome to the diplomatic exchange," Marcus began. "You've all volunteered to be part of something unprecedented. Over the next 6 months, You will learn a new approach to diplomacy that combines human and Calathrax methods. One of the Calathrax students raised a hand. Will we be required to remove our armor? The other Calathrax students stiffened, waiting for the answer. No, Velkara said firmly. We will never force anyone to remove their armor. But we will encourage you to consider when armor helps and when it hinders. Just as we will encourage the human students to consider when their openness is a strength and when it is a vulnerability. A human student spoke up, a young woman with nervous energy. Sir, ma'am, I heard that some of the Calathrax High Council called this program weakness training. Is that true? Yes, Marcus said, and some human politicians called it cultural surrender. They're both wrong. This isn't about weakness or surrender. It's about strategic transformation. It's about learning to see the world from a different perspective. Over the next weeks, Marcus and Velkara introduced the students to strategic transparency, their name for the hybrid approach. The lessons were challenging and often uncomfortable. They taught the humans how to read Calathrax posture and the subtle sounds their armor made when they moved. They taught the Calathrax how to interpret human facial expressions and the meaning behind different types of smiles. They ran simulations where human students had to negotiate while hiding all emotion, and Calathrax students had to negotiate with their helmets off. The Calathrax students struggled. One of them, a young warrior named Tresh, became so frustrated he left the classroom. Marcus found him in the observation deck an hour later. I cannot do this, Tresh said. His helmet was on, his voice muffled. Every time I remove my helmet, I feel exposed. Wrong. Can I tell you something? When I first met Commander Velkara, I asked her to remove her armor because I couldn't read her. I thought I was just being practical. I didn't realize I was asking her to do something that terrified her. She did it anyway. She did, and you want to know why? Not because she was weak or because she surrendered. She did it because she was curious. She wondered if maybe there was a better way. Tresh was quiet for a long moment. My clan sent me here because they believe I am too soft, too willing to question tradition. They hoped this program would fail and prove that the old ways are correct. And what do you believe? Marcus asked. I believe. Tresh reached up slowly and removed his helmet. His skin showed deep purple uncertainty, mixed with orange fear. I believe I am terrified, but I am also here to learn. That's all we're asking, Marcus said gently. Just be willing to learn. The human students had their own struggles. They found it difficult to hide their emotions when the training required it. One student, a diplomatic aide named Sarah, broke down crying during a simulation. I can't do it, she said to Velkara afterward. I can't negotiate without showing what I feel. It makes me feel like a robot. That is because you are used to using emotion as a tool, Velkara said. Her skin showed understanding, soft blue and green. But there are times when showing emotion gives your opponent an advantage. Learning to hide it is not about becoming a robot. It is about having the choice. But doesn't that make me dishonest? Does wearing clothes make you dishonest? Velkara asked. You choose what to reveal and what to conceal based on the situation. This is the same. Strategic transparency means knowing when to open and when to close. By the third month, the students were improving. The Calathrax students learned to work with their helmets off more often. The human students learned to read situations and adjust their emotional displays. More importantly, they were learning to work together. Then came the test. Marcus received a message from High Counselor Resh. The Sindresh refugees, the ones who had appeared in Calathrax space 6 months ago, were having problems. The temporary colonies that had been set up for them were failing. The Sindresh were requesting help, but traditional Calathrax diplomacy was making no progress. They operate as a collective consciousness, Resh explained in the message. Our individual negotiators cannot understand their group mind approach, We thought perhaps your students could help. It was an enormous risk. The students were only halfway through their training. But Marcus and Velkara agreed it was also an opportunity. They brought the 20 students together and explained the situation. The Sindresh think and communicate differently than either humans or Calathrax, Marcus said. They share thoughts across their entire population. Individual identity exists, but it's much weaker than ours. Traditional diplomacy doesn't work because they don't understand negotiating for individual benefit. What do you need from us? Tresh asked. His helmet was off, and his skin showed brave determination, bright red and blue. We need you to be the bridge, Velkara said. Use everything you have learned. Combine human empathy with Calathrax strength. Show them that you can work as a unified team while maintaining individual perspectives. The students traveled to the main Sindresh settlement. It was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. The Sindresh were insect-like beings who moved in coordinated patterns, building structures that seemed to grow organically from the ground. The first meeting was chaos. The Sindresh spoke all at once, their voices overlapping. They couldn't understand why the students didn't share their thoughts directly. It was Sarah, the human student who had struggled so much, who had the breakthrough. What if we show them, she said to the group. What if we demonstrate unity without losing ourselves? Over the next 2 days, the students created something remarkable. The Calathrax students learned to coordinate their movements like a Sindresh group, moving in formation, speaking in planned sequences. The human students learned to moderate their individual expressions and work as a cohesive unit. Together, they presented themselves to the Sindresh as a hybrid collective, individuals who could function as a group without losing their separate identities. The Sindresh were fascinated. They had never encountered a species that could bridge the gap between total individuality and total collectivism. Negotiations proceeded rapidly after that. The students, working as a unified team, helped the Sindresh articulate their needs in ways that both Calathrax and human governments could understand. They helped design new settlements that honored Sindresh collective living while respecting individual territory rights. When the students returned to the diplomatic exchange station, they were different, more confident, more capable, more unified. The final exam came 2 months later. High Counselor Tharn and several human ambassadors observed as the students faced a complex multi-party negotiation simulation. The students were remarkable. They moved fluidly between approaches, sometimes armored and formal, sometimes open and vulnerable, always reading the situation and adapting. The Calathrax students used empathy to understand opposing positions. The human students used discipline to hide strategic advantages. Together, they were more effective than any traditional team. When it was over, High Counselor Tharn stood to address the room. I have been a warrior for 60 years, he said. I learned early that strength comes from armor, from hiding weakness, from never showing fear. When this program was proposed, I voted against it. I believed it would make us soft. He paused, looking at the students. I was wrong, he said simply. What you have shown us is not weakness or surrender. It is evolution. You have created something new. A way of being strong that does not require hiding. A way of being open that does not require vulnerability. One of the human observers stood. The Earth Council has reviewed the program results. We are prepared to make this the standard training for all new diplomatic personnel, provided the Calathrax agree. Tharn looked at Velkara, then at Marcus, then at the students. The High Council will vote, but I believe we will agree. After the ceremony, Marcus and Velkara stood once again at the observation window. The students were celebrating in the common area, humans and Calathrax together, some with armor on, some without, all of them connected. Do you remember that first dinner, Marcus asked, when you told me to say what I was thinking? I remember, Velkara said. Her skin showed warm colors, yellows and soft pinks. Did you know what I would say? Velkara's skin flickered with amusement. I suspected you would say something shocking. You had been staring at me for days. I knew you were frustrated by the armor. So, you manipulated me into being honest? Marcus laughed. I gave you permission to be honest, Velkara corrected. There is a difference. I wanted to see what would happen if we tried something different. I was curious. And scared, Marcus added, looking at her exposed skin. Terrified, she admitted, but also hopeful. I had spent so long hiding that I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. What do you think happens next? Marcus asked. I think we'd have started something that cannot be stopped, Velkara said. Other species will hear about this. They will want to learn. The diplomatic exchange will grow. And we'll keep teaching? Yes. But more than that, we will keep learning. Because this is not finished, Marcus. This is only the beginning. Marcus smiled. Good. I'm not ready for it to be over. Velkara's skin showed agreement and affection. Deep blue mixed with warm pink. Neither am I. In the common area, Tresh was teaching a human student how to read Calathrak's skin colors. Sarah was showing a Calathrak student the subtle differences between human smiles. The barriers between species, so solid 6 months ago, were becoming bridges. High above the station, construction crews from both species worked together to expand the facilities. More students were coming, more programs were being planned. The experiment had become a movement. Marcus thought about that moment 6 months ago when he had accidentally said the wrong thing, or the right thing, depending on how you looked at it. One moment of honesty had changed everything. Velkara, he said suddenly. Yes, for being brave enough to take off your helmet that first time. Velkara's skin swirled with complex emotions. Gratitude, friendship, hope. Thank you for being brave enough to ask me to. They stood together, watching their students build a future neither species could have imagined alone. Armor and vulnerability, strength and openness, Calathrax and human, all of it merging into something new. Something better. Something unarmored, but unafraid.